Where there's a positive, there's a negative. Learn how advertising has its highs and lows when it comes to magazines. Advertising is an important part of everyday sales and exposure when it comes to services and products distributed by a company. Without it, companies and franchises wouldn't have an outlet of promoting what it is they are trying to sell and enhance in terms of widening their reach and existence in the market. You have to understand that advertising requires planning with regard to packaging and timing, because audiences rely on certain services and products based on events and seasonal requirements. Magazines tap into a niche audience where designer brand companies and other sponsors of this type of media in print know that by putting up ads in these pages they're targeting an audience of a selective kind. What are the advantages of advertising in magazines? Before we discuss the advantages of magazine ads, we first analyze the downside of this type of mass media influence. The first and foremost con is the cost that goes into putting up advertisements in magazines, where space and layout prices also come into play. Another major setback is that magazines have a lead time which, when slow-paced, can increase the risk of ads being released beyond an event's time. It is important to go by strategic advertising techniques to make the most of this type of media, to avoid repercussions in the future. The benefits of magazine advertising are aplenty, since advertising techniques are designed in such a way where the audience is the primary and obvious focus. Who buys magazines? They see it as a medium that businessmen, well-off people and young adults buy on a regular monthly basis, because they can afford to, since there is something appealing about the magazine that draws them to it. Advertisement exposure scores big ones when it comes to magazines, because there are people who buy them and can afford to splurge on what it is they come across. It benefits the advertisers, because they're being looked upon by those who live lifestyles that require them to, if not indulge lavishly, at least do so on an occasional basis. Reach. A magazine has considerable reach, either globally or nationally, appealing to a fan following that is ready to buy/subscribe to these reads, be it monthly or every quarterly. You can expect a cornucopia of different ethnicities buying your magazine, with the hope that your ads are something they will pause to look through and at least mull over subconsciously, if not make a conscious decision on the spot. Attractive display. The advantage of magazine advertisements is the fact that ads can look realistic and can jump out at readers, because of their glossy detailing and show of colors that calls for attention. Readers don't have a choice but to notice these well-placed ads that cover a whole page spread or run for successive pages in a connective order. Marketing well put together ads that surpass the ordinary and mediocre will have audiences enthralled at what they see, with a high possibility of them being your #1 consumers. Events. No matter what event date is fast approaching, magazines know that the focal point lies now in brands and services that will give consumers a reason to attain these depending on what lies ahead. Be it weddings, award functions, anniversaries, season sales or vacation getaways, magazines know how and when to release these very advertisements depending on their sponsors' needs. Audience selection. Not all magazines will have random ads splashed across their pages, especially those with big names in the business. It is a well-planned strategy of assigning only certain kinds of issues with the right sponsors. For example, youth magazines will have affordable services/products from brand houses. Fashion magazines will have expensive jewelry and clothes from well-known designers around the world, and so on. It's a selling point strategy, because you know exactly what kind of people are reading that issue and looking into your ad selections. Shelf life. It is true that a lot of people collect magazines, therefore lengthening the lifespan of an ad, which is one of the many objectives of advertising. It gives it the benefit to be looked upon again and again. I myself have a huge collection of monthly issues that I tend to go back to often, where there are people, as a fact, who similarly keep these in stock for collection's sake. The advantages of magazine advertising outweigh the disadvantages, but then again, which media doesn't have its share of valid pros and cons? We can sit back and read about all of this, But to really understand what goes on behind the scenes is what will give us a good idea of why advertising is important.